Howdy champs, my name is Mohit and people. Today I'm going to talk about radial gradients. The most modern syntax is what we'll focus on. See, over the time the syntax for radial gradients has changed after every few months, every few years. There are 4 or 5 variations out there, but we'll be focusing only on the most modern syntax. There's a lot of confusion, you see, and we'll just get rid of all the confusion. You see, inside the opening and the closing body tags, I have a div with a class of gradient here in line number 15. And inside the opening and the closing style tags, I have one single class gradient that I'm yet to define, which I'll be doing so in a moment. And also, if some of you actually notice that I'm using opening closing script tags, which point to inside the a JS folder that I have. In the local or the root folder, I have a JS folder which has a prefix min, prefix free.min.js file. It's a JavaScript file, people. What it actually does is that it ensures that you can write your code vendor prefix free. You don't need to write dash, mos dash, dash o dash, dash ms dash, etc. And anyways, the most modern syntax does not use vendor prefixes at all. But to make it compatible with older browsers, it's still best to include the opening closing script tags pointing to prefix free.min.js file, right? So let's see the syntax, understand the syntax. I'm going to build the difficulty as I go along, people. We'll keep it very simple initially, and then we'll slowly build on that, right? So let's see it in the most simplest form. So let's define a width and a height for the only division that we have, which is a class of gradient. So let's say I would want a width of W600 plus H200 and tab. See, the way I'm able to write this way, the reason why I'm able to write this way is simply because I have emit enabled editor Sublime Text 2. There's a procedure through which you can do that. I won't be talking about it. You can check out some other tutorials on that. That's a beautiful tool. It's an amazing tool to have. Right. I would also, let's say, would want to have a border of, let's say, 1px solid black. If I bring the browser up at this point, people, and if I were to refresh, then I'll say see an empty division this way. Cool. And the way to write the radial gradient is to first use the background property or even the background image property. Both work fine. And then write radial gradient. And in opening closing parents, define at least 2 colors. Let's go with lime, comma, orange. Save, bring the browser up, let's refresh. So from the center, forming an elliptical shape, simply because I'm not used a square but a rectangle, I get a gradient that extends up to all the 4 corners. All the 4 corners. So it ends at the corners, people, forming an elliptical shape. And this elliptical shape I can change to a circular shape too. We'll look at that. But does it actually mean that I can use only 2 colors, not 3 or 4? I can use more colors than 2. So I can go with, let's say, a plum and an orange 2, right? Let's check that. Now I have 4 colors. Awesome, right? And if I were to have circle included as the first argument, circle, sorry. Can I do that? You see, the shape is a circular shape, not an elliptical shape anymore. And by default, it's always at the center. Can I push it at the left? Left? Yes, I can. Using the at keyword, people. There you go. Or the right? Yes, I can. And I can even have values top left, bottom left, etc. Okay, I can even write values in terms of percentage. Let's say 25% x-axis, 25% y-axis. That's the vertical and horizontal shift, people. There you go. So along the x and the y-axis, I can shift it in terms of percentage or even in terms of pixels. So I can write something like 100px and let the next value be at 25%. You can mix the percentages and the pixels too. Yep. And it doesn't end out here, people. I can even make sure that my circles have a few more arguments. The default being farthest dash corner. Farthest corner. So the circle, the gradient circle, should extend in such a manner that the edge where the actual, the way the gradient actually ends, should extend up to the farthest corner. If I save the document up at this point, people, and bring the browser up, I refresh and there's no change, simply because it's the default, people. But if I were to change this to the closest corner, see what happens. And if I refresh, big change. Why? Because now the edges of the gradient end at the closest corner, which is this corner, and not the farthest corner, which is this corner. I have two more variations that I would like to talk about. Just like we have the closest corner, I have the closest side. We have 4 sides and 4 corners to every rectangle, don't we? And since it ends at the closest side, the edge of the gradient aligns itself to the closest side this time, making it pretty small. Okay, and closest corner is always going to expand it a little bit. Closest side is always going to shrink it a little bit. So let's make it corner. That should expand it, simply because the closest side is slightly away from the closest corner is slightly away from the closest side. See the little expansion, people? Right. So you need to understand that the edges of the gradient, what do I mean by edges, is the point at which the color change stops. That's where the the gradient stops. So the gradient, that edge aligns itself with the closest corner, the farthest corner, the closest side of the farthest side, right? Farthest corner is also the default, right? So is that all, people? No, that's not all. I can ensure that I have a repeating radial gradient too. But before that, let's look at color stops. I can also ensure that my colors actually stop after a point. Right. So let's say lime at 50 px, orange at 100 px, plum at 150 px, and orange at 200 px. Just keep on adding 50. If I bring the browser up and let's refresh, something went wrong. Let me check what. Okay, this should be orange, sorry, lime 50, orange 100, right? Refresh, right? So I've actually formed a pattern depending on color stops. At those many pixels, which can also be in terms of percentage, is where I would want the colors to end and the new color to start. Boundaries, creating demarcations or boundaries within which the gradient cannot spill over that boundary of, let's say, a 50 px or 100 px. Now if I were to include the word repeating right here, dash, so repeating radial gradient, save the document up, let's refresh and see the gradient repeat up to what you can actually see, up to the point what you can actually see. So people, this is the way you write the most modern syntax for radial gradients. I hope you found this information useful. Please do please do subscribe if you already haven't, and please comment, say something negative or positive. I really love to hear from you. I hope you found this information useful, people, and can I hope to see you more around my tutorials. You have a good day. Bye bye. Peace.